Alright, boys and girls, I am going to show you everything you need to know about crop QVS. This is going to be very important over the next few weeks because it's going to be how we tackle our reading going forward. I'm going to show you several things today. I'm going to show you how to take your crop QVS sheet and put it on Explain Everything. I am going to then show you how to do crop QVS on that sheet. That is not the best way to do your crop QVS. And then I'm going to show you how to do it in your writer's notebook. That's the best way to do it because when you do it in your notebook, you can give me the detail that I want. And it's not always the amount of detail you want to give, but it's the kind of detail that shows me that you are really good readers. And since most of your reading is coming from my guided read aloud, this shouldn't be super difficult for you to do the detailed way. All right? So we're going to start off with Tuesday's reading where we found out about the rats. And I'm going to connect to those rats. So before we do that, if you haven't done this yet, you're going to want to use your iPad, and I have it horizontal as you can see. I'm going to have you take your iPad and you are going to go to McCain Fourth to get that crop QVS. So we're going to click McCain Fourth, and that's going to take you to our website. You're going to scroll down once our website loads up. You're going to come to where it says Mr. Pete, and then you're going to click here for Remote Language Arts. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And once you get there, you're going to come to my remote learning site. And then you're going to click the weekly to-do list. And when you click the weekly to-do list, it's going to take you to that weekly to-do list that hopefully you've all looked at. If you haven't, it's a good place to start. You're going to scroll down to where it says Add the crop QVS form to explain everything. And you're going to go ahead and click that PDF, and that takes you to here. Now, this is your sheet. And the reason why I have it horizontally is just to show you if I hold it vertically, it just won't fill in the right way, especially when you try to take it to explain everything. You'll have to turn it and twist it. If you do it this way, it'll take it over to explain everything just the way you want it. All right, so you're going to come up to the upper right-hand corner of your iPad, and you can see there is a rectangle there with an arrow, and you're going to go ahead and click that. And you are going to scroll across your apps. You're going to click More, and you're going to find Copy to Explain Everything EDU. Go ahead and click that. It's going to bring you right to the page that you need to be at. You can see here that it shows you, the pages that you want. You can see mine are already selected. Just in case yours aren't, it might look like this. You're going to go ahead and click both. You're going to come down here. Mine is already on separate slides, but I know the first time I did this, it wasn't. It was actually on grid. And I didn't want grid. What grid does is it squeezes it all onto one page, and you don't want that. So you're going to click Separate Sides, and you're going to click Insert. And once you click Insert, there you go. You've got it. If you turn the page, you can see the back. And that's actually where we're going to start. So today we are going to be making a connection. We're going to be making a connection. And just so you take a look over here at our connections, you can see that our connections, and if you don't know where your connections are, I'm going to put yellow over top of it. Connections are in the upper left-hand corner. And you can see that a connection is when you can relate to something in the text on a deeper level. And there are three types of connections we're going to talk about this year. There's text to self, that's not as deep. That's when you connect the text to something in your life. There's text to world, which is pretty deep. That's comparing text and to events in the world. And then there's text to text, which is my favorite kind of deep meaning, because that's when you're taking text from one book and connecting it to another text, another book. And that's what we're going to do today. Okay? So you don't have to do this. I'm going to highlight the text to text just to show you that that's what we're going to do. We're going to come back and we're going to move over to connection. I'm going to actually expand this just so you can see it better. All right. Now, I'm going to expand it here. I'm going to leave some space on the bottom because I'm actually going to pull up an existing picture that I took. If you come over here, I've actually taken the exact print. And I've got that right here. You always use text when you do your text-to-text connections. You always use text in a connection because that text is where you start with. Now, this paper doesn't have a lot of space. You can add paper to this if you want to, that's fine. My preference is if you're going to use this paper to fit it in this paper, but I will tell you this paper is a lazy crop QVS. And I'll explain what I mean when I move over to the paper version right after this. All right, so this was on page 32. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to write page 32 right here. Okay. And I'm going to make my connection. I don't have to write on page 32 anymore because it says it right there. I don't have to write I'm going to make a connection because it's in the connection box. So I am going to write this. The first thing I'm going to write is which one of the three I'm going to do. So I am going to write text to text. Okay, with a little dash. And I am going to write this. So we read this part. Miss Baker shook her head. There's only one last chore, she said. Sycorax and Caliban need their cages cleaned out. I looked across the classroom at Sycorax and Caliban. I haven't told you about Sycorax and Caliban yet, and you might want to skip over this next part since it's pretty awful. And that awful is pretty, that's pretty important. That's the part of the text that I'm going to focus on because Sycorax and Caliban were rats. Every other classroom in Camilla Junior High had fish or hamsters or gerbils or mice. We had rats. The reason we had rats is that Lieutenant Tybalt Baker had picked them out. He had seen them in a pet shop window, and when he went inside, he decided they needed a home, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm focusing on that part. And the immediate question I want to ask you is, does it sound like Holling thinks these rats are good? No, he uses the word awful, and that's the part of the text that I'm going to focus on. All right? So here we go. On page 32, Holling mentions the class pets Sycorax and Caliban. Comma, 2 rats. You always spell out the numbers less than 10. 2 rats. He describes as awful. I'm going to put that in quotes. Period. All right, now here's the key. You're going to transition now over to where I'm connecting it. Since it's text to text, this, now I want you to take note. I'm literally just writing this. I've given this to you for a reason. This lets me know I'm switching to the other text. This reminds me of the Tale of Despero. The main character, one of the main characters, was a rat named Roscioro. Period. Roscioro and his mentor, Botticelli, tormented humans. Both stories have awful rats. And that's it. Now, in the land of Mr. Pete Crop QVS, this isn't a great crop QVS. It's a good crop QVS, okay? So in a moment, I am going to show you an amazing crop QVS. I'm going to give you a choice. You can do the easy one on this paper. I'm totally okay with that. I also know that some of you have parents who really push you hard, and I also have some of you who push yourself really hard. And if you do that, I'm going to give you an opportunity to push yourself really hard, okay? All right, so let us move over to the other version of this exact same crop with just a little more detail. Okay, boys and girls, you'll notice that I have right here a loose leaf piece of paper. You guys can do this in your writer's notebooks, though, or on a separate piece of paper. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to try to cram this on a just blank piece of paper or a ripped in half piece of paper. This definitely should be on a lined piece of paper. If you don't have a lined piece of paper at home, I don't want you to go to the store to get lined pieces of paper. To use what you have at home. Totally okay with that. But my preference is that this is done with margins because, guys, writing, I can't express enough to you how important it is that you guys use this line as a margin. A lot of you start writing, and the next thing you know, you're moving over like this, and that's there's a little bit of laziness to that. I'm not going to lie. So I want you to really work hard to make these look as neat as you possibly can. Now, if you want to type them out, I have a couple of kids, Evelyn, who likes to type. I'm totally okay with that. But you must model this one if you decide that you're going to do the hard version of this, okay? And the hard version is the best version, and the best version shows off how talented and awesome and wonderful you are. The other version's fine. The other version lets me know that you know what a connection is. The other version lets me know that you can do the concept. But where you go from an S to an E is the depth that I'm going to show you. All right, so the first thing that I always do is I write crop QVS at the top. That lets the teacher know, me, that you're doing a crop QVS. Okay, the second thing I do is I write the date, and today's date is April 7th, so 4/7/20. Okay, and then I'm going to write what crop I'm doing, and the crop that I'm going to do is connection. So I'm going to go ahead and write connection, and then I am going to write a dash, and I'm going to write text to text. I know some of you are probably thinking to yourself, well, Mr. Pete, I haven't read Tale of Desperate. Well, that's fine. This is just a model. Some of you have read other books about rats or about mice, and I think that you can make a connection. Now, you're going to see that the connection I'm making here is a little deeper than just, well, there's a rat in this one and there's a rat in that one. You could see it in that little snippet. It's not only that there's rats in the stories, and we don't know Caliban or Sycorax yet. All we know is that Holling called these rats awful. And that doesn't mean that they're awful, although they are. Because Holling does exaggerate everything, but it's all we know right now. So you can still make a pretty deep connection. All right, I am going to, again, bring my piece of text over here. I'm going to go to my existing images. I'm going to go to my photos. I'm going to pull that up. I think I did that. Going to pull that up. There it is. I'm going to shrink it. I'm going to click it done, and there she blows. All right, so here we go. Now remember, this is a model because I want you to model it. If you do it this way, I want you to do it this way. All right, I know that sounds silly. Some of you are like, well, duh, Mr. Pete, but you'd be surprised. All right, so here we go. On page 32, so the first thing you're going to start with is your text, okay? So I'm going to indent, and again, you put two fingers, which you can see I'm moving the paper. I actually did that. I'm going to put a little X there, because I'm going to indent, and I'm going to start writing. On page 32, and I'm not just going to start with the text. I got to lead into it. Holling, the main character. Again, all of these are to show the teacher that I know what I'm writing about. Now I can't put character in by the end of the margin. So I'm not going to like put half of the word there and half of the word there. I'm not going to cram it down like that, although it did fit. Actually, that does work. I mean, if you can cram it like that, that's okay. Some of you like do this. That's no good. Okay, so don't do that. On page 32, Holling, the main character, tells the reader, comma, quotation marks. Now remember, we use quotation marks because we're pulling text right out of the book. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come down here. And I'm going to start in the middle of the sentence that says awful. So I'm going to put ellipses. That means there's words before this. You might want to skip over the next part. And you can see I started my quote, and you can see I ended my quote, and you can see it was quite a bit. I have to prove that the text-to-text connection makes sense. And since I'm trying to show that the rats were awful, I had to make it seem like the rats were awful. Okay? And I'm not done. I'm going to add a little bit more. Holling clearly thinks the rats are bad. Now, here comes the most important part. I'm going to put it in blue only so it stands out. Now, I'm going to write what the crop is. I know I've got it here, but I need it in my paragraph, okay? And this is all just going to be one giant block paragraph, and that's okay. I'm going to make a text-to-text connection.
Okay.
Now I'm going to be connecting it to a different book. I don't have that book, and that's okay. I'm not expecting you to have the other book. I've read a lot of the books that you're going to mention. I can look them up. It's not a super big deal. If you have the other book, that's fine. I'm connecting, and this is important. You get both the books down. The Wednesday Wars. Now, when you're handwriting, you're underlining novels, okay? I'm connecting The Wednesday Wars to, right now I want you to think of what book you think Mr. Pete's going to pick. Oh, you already know. Nah. The Tale of Despereaux. Period. Underline. In The Tale of Despereaux, and I'm going to tell why. You know what? I'm not going to write in The Tale of Despereaux. I've already done that. I am going to show you a quick way so that you don't have to write titles. At the end of Tale of Despereaux, in parentheses, and I'm just gonna put it down here. In parentheses, I'm gonna do this. The Tale of Despereaux. So the first time that you write it completely, at the end you can put it in parentheses TTOD, and then you can use that going forward. So in The Tale of Despereaux, TTOD, a main character is a rat named Roscuro. That rat was banished, and so you can see here where it's getting a little different, to the dungeon because he accidentally, and I'm not going to put why, because it gives away part of the story, and I know y'all haven't read that. He accidentally, I'm going to put, he accidentally did something bad. Normally, I would tell you what that thing was, but I'm not. So just know that you should give me that detail. You're not going to ruin any books for me, okay? he accidentally did something bad. There, he met Botticelli. Botticelli, who became Roscuro's evil mentor. Botticelli and Roscuro were two evil rats who tormented humans. I'm going to go ahead and go past this. You can do it once in a while. This connects to the Wednesday Wars. Oops, got to capitalize that, Mr. Pete. Now there, I could have put TWW if I wanted to the Wednesday Wars, because of two evil rats named, almost said Botticelli, oh my, Sycorax and Caliban. And then you always close with a concluding sentence. This is my text-to-text connection. Period. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and shrink that down. I'm going to turn it back this way so you can see that is my complete connection. Okay? Now there are lots of little differences that you can do. I didn't write Wednesday Wars until right here. I probably, looking this over, would have put it somewhere up here. I might have said, on page 32 of Gary D. Schmidt's The Wednesday Wars. Okay, that's one way I could have made it better. I could have also down here said, I'm connecting Gary Schmidt's The Wednesday Wars to Kate D. Camillo's The Tale of Despero. So those are just a couple of things. I could have added text from The Tale of Despero if I had the text here. Unfortunately, all of my copies are in Erie, and while I'm here in North Carolina. But that is an example of a good crop QVS. You have a choice between one or the other, and really that choice is up to, you know, how hard you want to work and how much you want to impress me. Again, we're going to do next week. We're going to do, you know, I'm going to show you all of the different crops. So tomorrow I'm going to show you. Well, actually, it'll be today. You'll see both of these. I'm going to show you a different crop QVS, and then next week we're going to, over those 5 days, we are going to finish everything except for summary. The following week I'm going to do summary, and then every week we're probably going to have one or two of these to do, and then it'll be up to you to do the easy one or do the hard one. Okay? You'll get credit for either. You'll get bonus money for this. And I know some of you are like, well, maybe we won't get to use the bonus money. But don't worry, we'll figure it out. Okay? All right. That's it. I'm going to put this up on YouTube and then try to get this thing to show up on all of your checklists. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm not going to stress about it. You shouldn't either. It's just the nature of the way that we're learning. Okay? All right. Hopefully this recorded in a pretty cool way. If it didn't and everything was sideways, well, we'll figure it out. All right? Thank you very much. Good job, kiddos. On to the next.